I'm not worried much about sound. I'm worried about.
Well, let's see. I'm
visuals.
recording now, so we're here free to speak on the beach, and we're talking about topics of interest to you. Okay. Are you recording?
Yeah.
All right.
So hi. Is this okay? Hi.
Okay.
So the sun is on me. On the other side.
Okay. So I'll be on this side. So
So maybe you can even come close, I guess. Don't have to be there. Yeah.
Can anybody tell me what's going on? Tell me what's going on.
Hey guys, how are you? You're welcome to Free to Speak. We thank you for the time you've taken off to watch our videos and comment. Those who have been commenting. And yeah, it's another week. Hey
Yeah.
Bobby, how are you?
Good.
How's been your week?
Good.
Oh.
We're on the shore of Lake Victoria here in Entebbe, Uganda. So got a nice view of the lake for you today. So that gives them a little bit of change of scenery, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Try to mix it up a little bit with some of the backgrounds that we use.
yes, we've had a couple of topics, and we've had a few suggestions from some of our ardent followers, and while we're putting them under consideration, we'll have some topic for today.
I think what are some of those topics? Somebody suggested the death penalty we talk about.
Yeah,
Those might be for future.
Yeah, so yeah,
Future episodes,
We're
yeah.
wrapping our mind on that, but clearly we shall do it at some point. So. Yeah. Anyhow, how are you liking the weather here?
Well, it's most of the time it's actually surprisingly mild here for a place. From my perspective, as a person from the United States, where the weather is more extreme, where the summers get very hot and the winters get very cold. Here, the weather is fairly stable, and we have some hot periods once in a while, and sometimes you get some rainy periods. But overall, I think it's very comfortable. Although a lot of people around here think, when I'm comfortable, they think it's cold.
There is what we feel, and then there are facts. So, so while Ugandans might feel, okay, maybe the weather is harsh sometimes, maybe it's too cold, maybe it's too hot sometimes. That's from a Ugandan perspective. Yeah, but then when you get to the fact is that Ugandan temperature is around, on average, 23 degrees centigrade.
22 or 23, it's about 72, 73 degrees Fahrenheit for those in the U.S., and that's actually fairly mild.
So basically,
for a U.S. standard, that's fairly mild.
So yeah, our temperature is, on average, compared to other parts in the world, is actually perfect.
Yes.
Yeah,
and it stays that way most of the year round.
Yeah, our weather is technically a perfect weather, but like we say, perspective matters, in these things. And so yeah, some people are leaving Uganda and they're admiring to go to the US.
Yeah, so why do you think that is?
Yeah, so yeah, the reason I'm going to talk about this today is to get an American's perspective and my Ugandan perspective. So I might have some perspective on American things, even though I've not been there, and we don't have to agree because it's just perspective.
Right.
My perspective as a Ugandan, your perspective as an American. So yeah, as Ugandans, we are not so excited about being in Uganda for some reason. But shouldn't we be excited?
Yeah. Right.
And the reverse, So because they find the Americans who are not as excited to be Americans for some reason. Or maybe they're excited to be Americans, but not excited to be in America.
Well, you hear a lot of things in America about, well, I don't want to be in this country. Like you hear a lot of this from the anti-Trump people where they say, well, I don't want to be in this country if Trump wins. But then when Trump wins, they don't leave.
They stay.
Because they know that it's actually not a bad place to live. And so, but yeah. So, but you don't see a lot of people wanting to leave America because of financial hardship or anything like that. I think a lot of the motivation here is people because they think the grass is greener on the other side. There's money in America. It's hard to get money here in Uganda, and they want to go to where the money is.
Yeah, and
is that correct?
Yeah, and the saying goes, the grass is not always greener.
Not always green.
It's not always greener. That's why you find some people leave Uganda and they go to America, but then they stay there for the last 2 years and they're like, I will not go back. Then others go and they want to stay there forever. Different reasons, right? So in essence, the grass is not always greener on the other side. And some Americans come to Uganda, they don't want to leave. Are you one of those ones?
I don't want to leave. It's not necessarily I don't want to go back to my country. At some point, I am going to go back to my country. But right now, my wife is here. I've built a good life here. I've been here for, I want to say 14 months now. So 1 year and 2 months. I've kind of fit right in with the culture. I feel comfortable here. Now, of course, back in the U.S., you know, I got family there. My mother is still alive. My dad has passed away, but my mother's still alive. I got siblings. I have friends back there. You know, United States not necessarily a bad place to go back to, but I've really developed, you know, a love of Uganda and of the culture and of the people here. And but yeah, I'd ultimately like to retire here. I think at some point I will go back to the U.S. for a time and a period, but my ultimate plan is for me and my wife to retire here permanently in Uganda. So
yeah. Okay. So for my part, my perspective is I would phrase today's topic something like the dying patriotism across all countries. You know, Ugandans, you could find a big number of Ugandans are less proud to be Ugandans, and probably a big part of Americans would be less proud depending on the political environment at the time. So what could be the reason of reducing patriotism across? Because you know, a Ugandan would think it's just a Ugandan thing, but I wouldn't like to subscribe to that notion. I think it's all over the world.
Right. Well, I can tell you what I think is causing it in the U.S., and then maybe you can tell me what you think is causing it in Uganda.
Yeah.
So where I see the loss of patriotism, and I've even seen this in my own...
Maybe you want to describe, define patriotism.
So patriotism, I think I would define... And all the patriots out there are probably going to hate me because I'm not going to give a good definition here, but I would define patriotism as a love of country, an appreciation of your country and what it gives you and the opportunities that it provides for you, and also a spirit of pride. So you're proud to be an American, you're proud to be a Ugandan, you're proud to be in the country that you're in. So there's proud of your country, proud of your identity as a country and as a nation.
Yeah, so maybe to add a layer to what you're saying, I would like to go to a smaller unit of what builds a country, a nation, is that family. You know, every family has its set of difficulties or challenges as well as good moments. So usually you find that the families that are surviving and thriving are the families that are in Uganda. I will say this in Uganda. It says amakama lungi tegabula mundu lutu. That's Uganda. Amakama lungi tegabula mundu lutu. Meaning a family which is good does not exist without challenges or without conflict. In other words, every family has conflict, but then the family where they spread the image of conflict in the family to the greater society usually crumbles, you know. But then there are families which they have their challenges, but they work on them indoors,
right?
Yeah, and then you know they show the greater public a different image,
right?
Usually these families find their way back to the stability.
Because you don't have to air out your dirty laundry for everybody to see.
Exactly. So you need.
And that's not a good thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why there are therapists. You know, sometimes if you feel like it's beyond you,
some things
family,
are better dealt with in private.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then, would the patriot taint the image of their country? Would I go out there and speak about how bad Uganda is every time I get an opportunity? Let's say, like if I were to be given a platform, let's say when CNN is looking for me and BBC is looking for me, would it make sense for me to always just be speaking about everything bad about my country? Am I a patriot by speaking everything bad about my country? You know, am I helping the country? Am I growing the economy? Am I helping the people back home when I'm speaking negative of my country? Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think I want to go back to your original question about what do I think is causing the loss of patriotism. So maybe what we can do is talk about what I think is causing it in the U.S. Maybe you can talk about what you think is causing it in Uganda.
Okay. We can get there later. So what I'm asking is basically, some people believe that when they get international media and they talk everything bad about the country, that's their patriotism. That's patriotism. So I want to say, could it be any different? Could it be patriotic?
Why would that be considered? I guess I've never heard that before. I've never heard that.
No, like that's what they do.
But I've never heard that.
Not like in Uganda. Like this Ugandans, let's say, like Bobby Wine, when he gets airtime on any of these international, he's just talking about the impunity in the country.
And he's thinking he's being patriotic by doing that. To me, that's the opposite of patriotism. That's not what patriotism is.
So I want to say all that there.
Yeah, okay. So then it gets back to...
You want to know, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
so to me,
that's
actually not patriotism. Because if your whole point is to attack because you want to take advantage of all the problems that are there, then what you're doing is you're attacking all the problems that are there so that you can come along as kind of a savior and say, hey, I'm the answer. You're not really looking for a unified solution. You're looking to get people to rally behind you to be the solution. That's not patriotism. That's more narcissism. That's more focused on self.
Selfishness.
And it kind of gets back to the question you were asking earlier, which we
exactly. We can still connect because basically we have moved into politics now.
Yeah. The question you were asking earlier about what's causing the loss of patriotism in the U.S. and maybe what's causing it in Uganda. So in the U.S., there's this belief that because of the things that have happened in the history of the United States, such as the genocide and slaughter of the Native American, but then you got slavery, the legacy of slavery, segregation, this whole history. And so what you have is you have people saying that this whole country was based on white supremacy and on the murder of Native Americans and Africans who worked as slaves. So this whole system was based on all of this, on this white supremacy system. And so the whole system, the whole foundation is bad. The whole thing needs to be torn down. This country isn't worth saving. And there's a movie coming out by Matt Walsh called Am I Racist?, in which he exposes some of these people who actually say these very things, that this country is not worth saving. But the reality is, even though you had all these injustices in the past, the way you brought about change is that people rose up and said, no, we're going to change this. We can do something and bring about change. And things have changed. So the question is, do we work towards a more constructive approach to change by saying, okay, there's things that are in America that are good. Okay, there's been all these bad things. But there are so many things in America that are good. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, so many things that pave the way for freedom around the world. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we destroy our patriotic spirit, you know. And the thing is, I can understand why some people would hate many of the things that have happened in America's history, especially if you're in the group of people who've suffered. You know, I'm not faulting that. But is the answer just to teach people? And a lot of times this hatred of country is not coming from these groups. It's not coming from the Native Americans. It's not coming from African Americans. It's coming from a lot of the white woke people who are trying to virtue signal and say, look, I'm an enlightened white person and I recognize the horrible things that white people have done, you know.
Do you look at these white people as opportunists?
Yeah.
Opportunists?
Yeah. And because they're not really doing anything constructive, they're not really bringing about change, they're just trying to draw attention to themselves and saying, hey, look, I'm one of the good white people. I'm virtue signaling here. That's another word we haven't really talked about here, is virtue signaling. And how there's so much of a tendency among the woke crowd to say the right things. Virtue signal, that's what it means to say the right things. So you're virtue signaling and saying, I'm saying the right things. I'm talking about white supremacy culture. I'm using the right terminology. I'm calling this white supremacy culture, or I'm calling this whatever. I'm talking about systemic racism, and I'm using terminology like systemic racism. So I'm virtue signaling, and I'm using the right terms to let others know that I'm woke and I'm on the right side. But in actuality, most of the people who do this don't actually do anything to bring about change to the things that they claim are wrong with the country. They just virtue signal.
Yes, so there's a meme, recently I watched a meme where someone was making, because in Uganda, if you want to gather attention, you come and call out the government, call out corruption, call out things. So it was a meme. So this guy was making noise, Uganda, Museveni should go, da da da. Then someone brought bread and put in their mouth, and they started babbling and they kept quiet because now they had what to eat, you know. And that's something that's happening a lot, because most, like you say, virtue signaling, you find that someone has no way to get to the high table in the country, so they start as though they're speaking the things that everyone wants to hear until they get attention from the people that they seemingly are fighting. When they get their attention and they are offered a few things on the plate, next thing you know, they're quiet. And that's how the politics is running around here. So we don't have real patriots even in what we call the opposition in the country. You know, in essence, they're just looking out for themselves, so they can come out and claim to be, you know, fighting for the rights of the Ugandans and etc. But essentially, they're fighting for their own pockets.
So I've seen, like, maybe at that level, but I've seen at some of the general population levels, I do see a lot of patriotism among the general population in terms of proud to be Ugandans. Like there's kind of a unified spirit where people are proud of their nation. They're proud to be Ugandan. And I've seen that in the general population. Do you think that that's the case? Or?
No, yeah. So Ugandans are it's 50-50, because the Ugandans would be patriotic about their country, but then because you know, survival is a big thing right now, you know, and so you find that the biggest prerequisite in Uganda is to get a visa and leave the country. You know, I don't know where
to go where the grass is green.
Yeah, I don't know where that scores in our patriotism, you know, but that's the biggest prerequisite in the country. Like everyone wants to live. Why? Because yes, much as the person at the lower levels of the, you know, by the bottom of the food chain in Uganda might be patriotic, but the person who is at the strategic level of the country, are they patriotic? Because if the person at the strategic level determines how the person at the bottom, you know,
those that are in positions of power, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
At the strategic level.
The guys who are up there, who are making things work or making things happen, they determine what the people at the bottom of the food chain benefit from. You know, if the people at the top, what the notion is that Ugandans know for a fact that even the people in opposition, they're just seeking out for themselves. Because you're seeing these examples. You know, someone comes, you know, he says he's fighting for you every time. For 20 years, someone has been the mayor, but then all they do is frustrate, you know, all government development or government progress, government plans to develop the city. They're always frustrating. No, let's not accept this building. Let's not accept this road. They're stealing money. They're stealing money here and there. You know, they're always talking about what is not going to work and always frustrating any plans of the government. You know, but then you find that in the background, these people are actually getting money. Let's say from funders or people believing what they're doing, and they're enriching themselves. They're building mansions left, right, and center. But then they're frustrating, you know, strategic plans the government is having for its people. So yes, my point here is that okay, so the government is not always wrong. You know, even if you're in opposition, that doesn't mean that everything the government is bringing is wrong. And you're not going to fight corruption, embezzlement 100%. It's impossible. You know, I have this analogy that okay, so if you steal 40,000 Ugandan shillings, that's around $10. You know, if you steal $10 from an average Ugandan and you rob them of $10, you probably condemn them to starving for the next 1 week. Yeah, so you've stolen a lot of money, and you know, and that person would like to kill you if they get you. They will ban you.
Yeah.
But then, if you steal $10 from, let's say, an MP, a member of parliament in Uganda, you steal $10, then they not even notice that you stole $10. Right? Same.
Just like if you stole $10 from me, I wouldn't notice it.
Yeah. So now let's flip the coin to a bigger picture. So in Uganda, we have they say we are a low-income country, something like that. They say we are low. I'm saying they say because I don't really believe some of these things, but that's my perspective. Anyway, we don't have as much. So when people embezzle the amounts they embezzle, it makes wild news, and you may think Uganda is very corrupt and people are very corrupt, but then the same amounts people are embezzling here in Uganda, and they're embezzling the same amounts in the US.
Yes, and
even bigger.
Even bigger, larger, yes.
Yeah, so
much bigger.
They're embezzling bigger money in the US, and someone in the US has I'm not saying they don't have the moral authority to come and judge the Ugandan for being embezzling money, for being corrupt, because they're also corrupt. It's just that they have a bigger cake they're eating from. You know, so if you take a pie from a big cake, people may not really notice as much, or it may not make as much noise. But then, so the white people or the Western culture is actually, they're the ones who they've set their precedence in essence, because much of what we are doing here, people are trying to copy and paste what they are seeing that people are in the West doing. Our system is trying to carbon copy what they're seeing that side, and probably that's why we are failing at this. because you're copying people and that's in the West who are actually embezzling big funds from a very big economy, and then you think you can do the same here, and it's killing us.
So we will see you again in another 7 days.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.